In quiet neighborhoods, power goes wrong.
The courtroom went silent when the number was spoken. 10 years. My disabled daughter sat frozen in her wheelchair, eyes wide, hands gripping the armrests like they were the only thing keeping her grounded in reality. She didn't understand prison. She didn't understand years. She only understood fear. Across the aisle, the HOA Karen nodded with satisfaction, like she'd just won a debate, not destroyed a child's future. And that's when I realized something terrifying. She truly believed she had the power to take my daughter's life away. She had no idea who I was. It started with a violation notice. Then another. Then another. HOA letters became weekly visitors, each colder, each more aggressive than the last. They cited our daughter's wheelchair ramp, her medical parking access, even her therapy visits as disturbances. We complied where we could, appealed where we couldn't, and documented everything. But Karen didn't want compliance. She wanted control. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She was obsessed. She showed up unannounced, photographed our house, filed complaints at odd hours. Once, she leaned close to my daughter and said, "If you can't follow rules, you shouldn't live here." My daughter cried that night. I filed reports. Karen escalated. The accusation was absurd. They claimed my daughter had intentionally damaged HOA property using her wheelchair, and that repeated violations showed criminal intent. Criminal. Against a disabled child. Karen pushed for the harshest penalty possible, working with a local attorney willing to overreach. Charges were filed not because they were valid, but because she wouldn't stop pushing. The courtroom felt colder than it should have. My daughter sat beside me, dressed neatly, clutching a small stuffed toy for comfort. Karen sat across from us, smug and confident, surrounded by binders labeled evidence. The judge entered. Karen smiled. "Your Honor," Karen said loudly, "this family has shown repeated disregard for community law. We request the maximum sentence to deter future violations." The room murmured. The judge frowned. 10 years, he asked carefully. Karen nodded. Yes. My daughter whispered, "Daddy, am I bad?" That broke me. I stood up slowly. "Your Honor," I said, "may I speak?" The judge nodded. I looked at my daughter. Then at Karen. Then at the bench. This case is built on harassment, not law. Karen scoffed. Objection. The judge raised a hand. Let him finish. Karen stood again. This child is not above the law, she snapped. Disability is not an excuse. The words landed like stones. My daughter flinched. The judge's face hardened. I took a breath. I hadn't planned to say anything yet. But Karen's voice left me no choice. I reached into my jacket. Pulled out my identification. Not for the room. For the record. I'd like the court to note, I said evenly, that I am a federal agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The courtroom froze. Karen laughed nervously. That's irrelevant. The judge leaned forward. It's very relevant. Karen's smile faded. The judge requested a brief recess. And as officers moved toward the bench, Karen realized something too late. She didn't just misjudge a family. She challenged the law itself. The judge ordered a recess. Not the casual kind, the serious kind. Court officers stepped forward. A clerk quietly collected my identification and walked it behind the bench. The room buzzed with whispers. Karen sat stiff in her chair, tapping her pen like it could drown out reality. She kept repeating under her breath, "He's lying, he's bluffing." But the judge wasn't bluffing. 10 minutes felt like an hour. Then the clerk returned. She leaned in and whispered to the judge. The judge's face changed, not shocked, not angry. Focused. He nodded once. and looked directly at me. "Agent," he said. That one word shifted everything. Karen's pen slipped from her hand and clattered onto the courtroom floor. This is intimidation," Karen stammered, standing up too fast. "He's trying to scare the court." The judge raised his voice. "Sit down." Karen froze. She sat. Her confidence evaporated. The judge turned toward the prosecution. "Why is a disabled minor facing criminal charges for what appears to be a civil HOA dispute?" The prosecutor hesitated. "Well, the HOA representative insisted." The judge cut him off. "Insisted is not evidence." Karen swallowed hard. One by one, Karen's so-called evidence was reviewed. Photos taken without consent, videos clipped out of context, violation notices contradicting federal disability law. Every page told the same story. Not crime. Harassment. I stood again. "Your Honor, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, my daughter's accommodations are protected. Criminalizing them is not enforcement, it's discrimination." The judge nodded. "I'm aware." Karen whispered, "That's not fair." The judge snapped his head toward her. "Fair is exactly what we're discussing." Karen suddenly exploded. "She uses that wheelchair as an excuse. She's manipulating the system. This neighborhood has standards." The courtroom gasped. My daughter's hands shook. I reached down and held them. The judge slammed the gavel. "That is enough." The judge leaned forward, voice sharp and calm. "Ms. _____, your language alone borders on contempt." Karen tried to speak. "No." The judge raised a finger. "One more outburst, and you will be removed." Karen nodded silently. Her power was gone. The judge turned to me. "Agent, is this case part of a larger pattern?" I answered carefully. "We've documented repeated harassment, falsified reports, and targeted enforcement against disabled residents." The judge exhaled slowly. "I see." Karen's face went pale. For the first time, the judge addressed my daughter directly. "Sweetheart," he said gently, "do you understand what's happening today?" She shook her head. "No, sir." He softened. "You're not in trouble." Tears rolled down her cheeks. Karen stared at the floor. The judge turned back to Karen. "Why did you request a 10-year sentence?" Karen opened her mouth. Closed it. Then muttered, "To make an example." The courtroom went silent. "An example," the judge repeated slowly, "of a disabled child?" His voice hardened. "This court does not punish vulnerability." Karen's shoulders slumped. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Given the involvement of a federal agent and potential civil rights violations, I am requesting immediate review by federal authorities." Karen looked up sharply. "What does that mean?" The judge met her eyes. "It means this case is no longer under your control." The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, the state moves to withdraw charges pending review." The judge nodded. "Granted." A wave of relief swept over me. My daughter squeezed my hand. Karen remained seated as everyone else stood. She didn't look angry anymore. She looked afraid. Because for the first time, she understood. This wasn't about HOA rules. This was about accountability. When the court reconvened, the room felt different. Heavier. Sharper. Honest. Karen returned to her seat, no longer confident, no longer loud. She avoided eye contact with everyone, especially my daughter. The judge took the bench and didn't waste a second. "This court will now address the consequences of today's findings." Karen's lawyer leaned over, whispering urgently. She nodded, trembling. The judge looked directly at my daughter. "In the matter of the state versus a minor," he said firmly, "all charges are dismissed with prejudice." The gavel struck. Bang! It was over. My daughter let out a quiet sob of relief. I pulled her into my arms as the courtroom murmured. Karen's shoulders dropped. But this wasn't the end. The judge flipped through his notes. Now, he said slowly, we will address the conduct of the HOA representative. Karen stiffened. The judge continued. This court finds sufficient evidence of discrimination, abuse of authority, and malicious prosecution. Karen's lawyer stood. Your Honor. The judge raised his hand. Sit. The room went dead silent. The judge looked straight at Karen. This case is being referred to federal authorities for civil rights violations under the ADA. Karen whispered, no. The judge didn't flinch. Additionally, this court orders an immediate investigation into the HOA's enforcement practices. Karen's face drained of color. Two men in suits stood near the back of the courtroom. Badges flashed. Federal Bureau of Investigation, one of them said. Karen's knees nearly gave out. The judge nodded to them. You may proceed. Karen stood up shakily. I didn't mean. The agent interrupted. You'll have the opportunity to explain. Handcuffs clicked. Not loudly. But loud enough. The same woman who demanded 10 years in prison for a disabled child was now being escorted out of the courtroom. No shouting. No excuses. Just consequences. People stood silently as Karen was led away. Some looked shocked. Some looked ashamed. But everyone understood one thing. Power doesn't protect cruelty. The judge turned toward my daughter again. You are not broken, he said gently. You are not a problem. And today, the law stood with you. She nodded, wiping her tears. Sunlight poured down the courthouse steps. Reporters gathered, microphones ready. I didn't stop. I knelt in front of my daughter instead. It's over, I whispered. She smiled for the first time in weeks. Within days. The HOA board resigned. Karen was terminated immediately. Multiple families came forward. A federal civil rights lawsuit was filed. The neighborhood changed. Not because of rules. But because fear was gone. A week later, my daughter received a letter. It read, you are recognized as a victim of discrimination, not a criminal. The court apologizes for the harm caused. She framed it. Karen faced federal charges, civil penalties, a permanent ban from HOA leadership, loss of professional licenses. The system she tried to weaponize finally turned on her. Therapy replaced fear. School replaced courtrooms. Laughter returned to our home. My daughter started sleeping through the night again. The story spread. Parents spoke up. HOAs backed down. Disabled families felt seen. Justice echoed beyond one courtroom. I didn't win because I was an FBI agent. I won because the truth matters. And because no child, no disabled child, should ever be punished for existing. They tried to give my daughter 10 years in prison. Instead, they gave her something better. Justice.